Hello guys, this is Vincent at Practical Performance with a sore throat today. I'm sorry about the how I sound. This is a video mainly for Javier, who is asking me about installing the VinceBar kit, the topside kit, without actually removing the subframe, the rear axle completely. I just wanted to go through what's involved with that, the challenges. This is my what I call my workbench. This is a rear quarter of a 320i sedan, and I just sort of mocked up the different pieces here with the subframe and the bushings, OEM bushings and so on. So to make this a little bit easier to understand, I'm going to flip the camera over just like I usually do, and get right into it. So the subframe with the front mounts, the rear mounts, these are the rear factory bushings with the large holes. That's significant for the challenge. This is the factory front. I can't remember if it's left or rear that has the elongated hole. The other one is just circular. I think it's like 13 millimeters. And the factory stud, well, the studs, the threads are M12, so there's not a lot of play there. Anyway, we have this factory stud sitting in the bushing like that, and it's screwed into the subframe. Oh, sorry, the RACP, the rear axle carry panel, and obviously the bushing sits inside of the subframe as well. So the challenge here is, if I just sort of for illustrations purposes remove the bushing, this is how the front stud, the factory stud sits. So all the way down, this hex piece is against the surface of the carrier panel there. So obviously, to be able to get this out, you need to unscrew it. There needs to be enough, you need to lower the subframe enough, and you can't just angle it like this. You will need to like parallelly move it downwards in order to screw this, first of all, screw this out. And now you will be sitting something like that, for instance. And now the next challenge is to be able to, see, I'm holding the camera with one hand here. So you need to be able to not only sort of get it down enough, now you'll have to lift it back up and sort of move it like that to get it out. And your bushing will obviously not fall out of the subframe. But anyway, so you understand that this needs to come down maybe like 4 inches or something, at least, because you need to get this down, and then you need to get that part out of this sort of tight hole. Now, the next challenge is to drill the hole through and to thread it. The way you could do that is, once you get this out, and again, sorry, I didn't say that, but the rear bolts just sit like that. So you just unscrew these. As long as you get the, on the left side, there's a little bit of a challenge with the exhaust sort of passing over under, actually. So you may need to remove the exhaust. I think you do actually able to get this down at all, if I remember correctly. Yeah, obviously you need to do that. Anyway, so getting these out is not a problem, and the hole is really large as well. So to be able to drill through, obviously let's see here, the standard 10.5 millimeter drill bit will not, reach through this and all the way into the cabin, well, actually all the way in through. And let's see if I can do that. To be able to get it sort of past that skin here, this surface here, it needs to go down at least that much. So you can see it would not work, because now the drill bit is way inside of the bushing. So therefore, let's take that out. I will supply a really long 30 centimeter, a foot long, 10 millimeter drill. So with this, now imagine the bushing sitting there. Well, actually, sorry, one more thing. Now you have a tight hole here, and you want to hit that hole correctly. So what I suggest you do is, when you get this out, and you're done with that, now you jack the subframe, the rear axle, back up against the carrier panel, and use a rear bolt to sort of line it up so you're sitting perfectly centered. So the subframe here is perfectly centered on both sides here, because this will be moving around as you're lowering it and jacking it back up, and you have the suspension sitting like all over the place. So this is to ensure that now you have these tight holes, should I say, perfectly centered over the holes, okay? And now again, imagine that sitting there. You take your long drill, you drill through your 10 millimeter, and it will poke out through that slanted surface, okay? And now you can use your the hole saw assembly here with the hole saw guide rod there. So now you will have a sort of an elongated hole in this slanted surface. You stick this through and you drill sort of all the way as far as you can. And as I've shown in videos, you kind of remove this, you bend that over, out, and then you drill through the last part there, okay? So now you have this opening, which I already have. Now from the top side, inside of the car, now you use your 10.5 millimeter. This is required to drill, the drill required to get the correct inner diameter for the M1.5 millimeter drill, threading tap, okay? So now you drill from the inside, it's just a 0.5 millimeter diameter. You just sort of have to shave off a little bit there, okay? Now, to thread, you obviously need to start on the bottom side because the thread starts here and you drill down a part that's not threaded. The threading tap, the length of it will not reach through, well, it will sort of reach into and through the bushing. Well, actually, let's do this. The subframe, and this is sitting here. And imagine, so it's centered over the hole. You use this to center it, like that, okay? Now, imagine the subframe is around here. It's kind of tight, you have a lot of things going. Actually, there's another challenge that I forgot to mention. As this here is sitting there, the handbrake cable the parking brake cable is coming out of this hole, going into that hole with a plastic kind of bushing thing here. So when you're lowering it, it's kind of tight here. Really, when you remove the whole assembly, you sort of pull these out, making it easy to, well, not easy, but easier to sort of lower it and get it out. So there's going to be some challenge there. And I'm mentioning this because that's the challenge when you get these out. That's why I'm saying it might actually pay off to just, remove the whole rear subframe and do a thorough inspection of the whole rear axle carrier panel. That's my suggestion. If you really, really don't want to do this, this is the way to do it. Okay, so we were at this point. You're now at the point where you're threading. So my suggestion is, again, as this kind of, it doesn't reach through there, the tap that I'm providing is kind of clever in that way that a standard 1/4 inch extension will fit. So these are 2 extensions that I just put together. It will fit over here. Let's see if I can do that with one hand. So it fits on top of there, okay? Now you have a really long threading tap that will go through, okay? And like that. And obviously this is already threaded now, but you can imagine now you can thread this using, I don't know, an adjustable wrench or whatever tool you have here. And again, my as I mentioned in other videos, my strong recommendation and the way I have been taught to thread is once you get to you're just kind of cleaning some existing threads first. And now after a while, you're getting into cutting new threads. When you get to that point, you'll feel the resistance, obviously. Now turn it 1/2 a turn at a time, and then you sort of back off until you feel a click, and then you keep going. That's going to give you the best thread. I'm not sure what that's called in English, but we call it a back cut if you do a straight translation from Swedish. So there you go. Then you have the sorry, the threaded hole, it just occurred to me, you know what? You cannot get this all the way up against because you have this distance. So there's a difference between this here, sits all the way up against that surface. The front part here sits up against that. There is a spacer in my kit. That's a 7mm spacer that, that will, once you put the extended VinceBar stud here, which does not have that hex piece, you sort of screw that in, you lock it from the inside with the collar nut. I should have probably brought those here as well. And then you kind of stick that on top. So maybe what you could do is you could, as you're sticking this up against, you're jacking it up against, and you want to get it centered, as I mentioned before, maybe you want to use that aluminum spacer there, just to make sure, because otherwise it will be sitting at an angle, like a little bit like that. I'm exaggerating now, but, and you can imagine if you have it at an angle and this hole is tight, you will not be able to hit this correctly. It's just something to consider. Okay, in the rear, not so difficult. You run this through. Now here you have a lot of clearance with this large hole. You run the 10mm from the bottom. Again, you go inside the car, you do the 10.5. And again, you use, let's just get the extension and all this stuff. You use this assembly, just like in the front, you go through, and then you do the rest of the job. So that's what you need to do from the bottom. I did show some of the top stuff as well, just to get in there and to get this to reach through from the top. What we did is we used the hole saw assembly to cut out this here. So we get the drill, the power drill and the drill bit all the way sort of in there. Okay. That's a bit of an explanation there. Javier, let me know how it goes. Actually, and you know what? We need to add this to your order. That's another 120 crowns, SEK, Swedish crowns, SEK. That's all. Thank you. Bye-bye.